Now, a look at jobs and businesses in the Midwest. So please welcome to the stage David Johnson, President and CEO of the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership, Christina Moffatt, Director of Small Business Resources at the Greater Des Moines Partnership and owner of Crème Cupcake Dessert, Laurie Phelan, President and CEO of Iowa Jobs for America's Graduates, and Taufeek Shah, owner of Lola's Fine Sauces and Kitchen and wealth manager at Financial Architects. And here to lead the conversation, Steve Clemons, The Atlantic's Washington editor-at-large.
Thank you very much, Emily. Good to see all of you. You know, I wanted to say something before we got started that today, after in a little bit, you're going to meet Steve Case. And I had the pleasure of coming through a number of these cities, including Des Moines, and I really love Des Moines. But we hit a lot of them on his Rise of the Rest bus tour. We were on a blue bus, and it was awful. But the cities were great. The startup crawls were great. And I fell in love with what I saw were kind of underreported strengths of this region that we didn't see. And I don't know if Mick Cornett is here, but Mick was someone I had the pleasure of interviewing. I love the mayor's panel just a minute ago, but Mick was from Oklahoma City, and he was doing kind of radically unique things of tying people together on challenges, health challenges and others and it was affecting the way they were making investment decisions in the city, and particularly about obesity and trying to get we're going to talk about it when I interview him later, but you know, to try to affect the way the city thinks of itself or the region thinks of itself in sculpting it so that people feel like they can get out and meet one another and they can actually change patterns of behavior. And so I want to talk to you folks about the business side of this. And we had a little bit of lesson up here about everything going great in the region and tight labor supply. We did have something that was brought up about race and refugees and immigrants and others, water. But I'm interested in, you know, all of you have such great profiles on what you're doing and everything sounds so rah-rah and wonderful. What is not going well right now? And I'm just going to put this in terms of what your challenges are, things that you're going to try and change. And let me just start with Christina, and tell us, because you're responsible for the small business environment here. So tell us what's going poorly that you need to fix. Or is it just all great and we should move on?
I don't think there's, to use the word poorly, I think that the challenges that we face, especially with small businesses, when you have such a low unemployment,
right.
It's really hard for these small businesses to survive when they don't have the labor pool to fill the jobs. And it doesn't matter if you're a restaurant, it doesn't matter if you're skilled labor in a construction company, right. Everybody really needs workers right now, and it's very difficult to get them. And so when you look at small businesses, they are turning to their competitors a lot and saying, hey, let's entice you over here. And so for a small business, when you look at that, one of the challenges is all that intellectual property walks out with that employer right into the next
So what is the Greater
down.
Des Moines Partnership doing to change that?
So for us, one of my main focuses is that we host educational sessions every single month. And for that specific example, we just had top 5 things you need to know to protect your intellectual property when employees leave. Because we know, I mean, even bartenders leave and they walk out with this cocktail recipe that you may have spent 2 months working on, and now it's down the street and $1 cheaper. So it's things like that that we really try to focus on once a month to get these businesses kind of educated with options that they can walk out and implement, hopefully one of the 5 things, and make improvements.
You know, Laurie, Iowa Jobs for America's Graduates. So I assume that you're true to your title, that you're trying to take folks at universities and bring them here and find, you know, put hand in glove. Do I have it largely right?
Middle school and high school kids.
Middle school and high school kids. So how's that going? Are they, because I've noticed in the demographics of Iowa as a state, what's interesting is the state is getting younger. Mm-hmm. And that is rare in the Midwest. Most of the time you see the coast getting younger. So are you killing people off? Or is there something, you know, why are you succeeding if you are succeeding?
Well, my parents might think that we're trying to kill them off, but most Iowans don't. I think we're succeeding because we're about relationship to begin with, and when we are able to meet each other on the street or in venues like we have represented here and eye to eye, our young people who come from a disadvantaged family or they don't see opportunities for hope get to meet real life people, sometimes for us in their classroom, and these people are working in good jobs and they start to see each other for who they really are, and they can elevate one another. And to speak to the first question about your challenges, for us it is that companies that see this opportunity of building relationships with populations they never really knew before, and yet they're trying to make money, a profit, and being able to have their employees go out into the communities and work with our kids. And there's not enough time for all of that to happen, but when it does, really, we have miracles happening and lives changing.
But I'm going to be tougher on you. When we walked in this morning and you came up and you said hello, and I was telling you about my little Steve Case story and the Mike Huckabee bus that he rented, you said, hey, a few years ago, this part of town was not too fun to be in. And I'm interested in the kind of, if I were, the Machiavelli of city development and trying to sort of ruthlessly beat out my competition in creating an environment that people wanted to be, I imagine one of the things would have been creating communities like this. I met a few of you out here. There were a couple of folks from the, I think it's the Department of Cultural Affairs for the state, and I asked them what they do, and it was fascinating. And met another young gentleman here who worked on LGBT acceptance and partnerships within the school systems. Again, something I hadn't expected to meet here, which I found very impressed. So I'm interested in what kinds of needles do you push to make this place fun so that the talent you want to have here sticks?
Well, from our perspective, the needle that we push is getting kids to get excited about staying in their own city, and for companies to see that the people who live here are pretty cool themselves. And together that Imagineering just happens. And I don't want to say it in all Pollyanna way, because many of our kids see our companies and opportunities here as not the place that they want to stay, because they don't know people in those areas, in that type of work. But when they meet them, and those individuals can pull our kids along with them, that old adage of being an apprentice, sort of, then they create this.
Right.
They make it really happen.
David, how does Indiana differ from Iowa? And I know you're like the biotech guru there. He's raised more money than anyone I know. His bio is scary. But you have raised a ton of money to help broaden economic opportunity and investment and partnerships in a huge way around the biotech sector. So why is it happening where you are, and not San Diego, for instance? Well, it is happening in San Diego, but why are you beating them?
It's happening in very different ways in a place like Indiana or Indianapolis from what's in San Diego. Indiana's economy is similar, really, to the economy here. It's a traded economy, traded sector, institutionally strong. If you're Brookings and you're looking at the advanced industries that power the country in terms of being STEM intensive and R&D intensive, so they're innovative, we are the #2 state in terms of those advanced industries. 45 of the 50 that Brookings describes in that sector are one of the sectors that we are working on in Indiana. So, and that's about 10% of the jobs to 12% of the jobs. It represents about 20% of the economy, represents 60% of the exports, represents 80% of the patents, 90% of the R&D. So these are really valuable industries to have. And the ag industry is a big piece of that for us, the same way it is here. Our unemployment rate is, I think, more like 4% than 2%, but it's basically sort of the same issues there. I think the largest challenge that we have, back to your first question, and it is a business issue. Our organization is CEOs only, and it's the people that basically control the power of the purse to figure out what we're going to invest in as a region. And we work a lot with philanthropic leaders and university leaders. And that strategy of sort of having an advanced industry approach and looking at those top-end jobs and top-end opportunities works pretty well to drive the top end of the economy. But we are painfully aware that not enough people are being able to enter those top-end jobs, and it's frustrating because the advanced industries that I mentioned to you, more than half the jobs in those industries do not require a four-year college degree, and in some cases don't even require an associate's degree. But we have real challenges of economic mobility and the ability of people who are in poverty or just in jobs that are going nowhere to be able to get into that sector. So we view that as a tremendous business issue because the business community in our state cannot rise the tide enough to be able to deal with the number of people who are being left behind in this economy. It's obviously not just us, it's happening in a lot of places. Brookings is going to publish a major study later this fall on what they call opportunity jobs.
Is this the Metropolitan Program, Metropolitan Policy
It's
Program?
a Metropolitan Program. It's Mark Muro's shop at Brookings, and they're going to publish a study later in the fall on what they call opportunity jobs. It's a concept they developed actually after Katrina in New Orleans to try to look at how people enter into the economy. And the findings on us will be extremely interesting there, and again, indicative for other parts of the country as well. Everything all of us are doing is really good. It's just not enough, and we need to have a lot more ways to get people into it. It starts, by the way, with not incentivizing jobs that go nowhere. I woke up this morning to learn that in my home city of Indianapolis, we're about to award 9 years of tax abatements to jobs, the highest of which will pay $13 an hour and the lowest of which will pay $8. We should not be doing that. We should be insisting that all jobs, at least that are being incentivized with government money, pay at least two times the poverty level, 200% of the poverty level, which for us would be $18 an hour with benefits. So there's some policy issues we can do immediately. There are other issues that also reflect on the inclusion. This is a problem that disproportionately affects minorities, women, and children. And so
well,
all of
thank
those
you
are
for putting
issues for
all
us.
that on the table, and I want to come back to it in a minute after we get to our good friend Taufeek, who's been patiently here. Like, he's the real business guy.
He is.
But I do think that these issues of how do you bring in, goes back to Gina's question over here, how do you bring in parts of the population that are sitting on the edge of the positive stories that we're talking, that there are real other stories, so thank you for that. Taufeek, do you know Daniel Lubetzky?
I do not.
Does anybody know Daniel Lubetzky? Gotta look up. He's a crazy guy. You all know Kind Bars, the Kind Bars?
Yes. So
Kind Bars were created by, he happens to be a friend of mine. He is, he just defines himself as Mexican, Palestinian, Jewish, interested in making this. So he created Kind Bars, and but his fascinating thing are all the identities that came around that sort of forged him. And originally he started out as an activist who wanted to eat better, and so wanted some health food as he did travels. And it just, in a way, because I know that your family is your parents are from Philippines and Pakistan. You're in Des Moines. It's kind of a Lubetzky-esque story.
Yes.
And now you have Lola's Fine Sauces. So tell us a little bit about your story, but how are you navigating? I think the big takeaways are, how are you navigating this environment? And I'll ask you the same question: what's going well, and what would you like to see these folks here be more attentive to that they're not?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give you a little brief background on my product, we're a hot sauce company. We sell it all over the country now. We also sell it in Canada as well. Started right here in West Des Moines, Iowa.
Is it going okay with the tariffs? The Trump tariffs haven't shut you down?
Not yet,
Yeah.
not yet. The only one that's affecting is China right now.
Okay, yeah.
So we're in the process of...
So literally, this could be tweeted: the Trump tariffs have shut down your export of hot
Right.
sauce to China?
Right, pretty much.
That's actually a story.
Right.
Go ahead.
So it's a hot sauce condiment, and the space is just ever so changing with the food industry and everything changing around it. Products are moving to something healthy, something natural. And our products came from, I brought it to a department potluck, and then from there I took it to grocery stores and to farmers markets, and from there we've been able to work with our distribution partners and had a lot of success in the retail space, working with Kroger's, Whole Foods, Amazon's, and other big companies to carry our products throughout the country for us.
How many employees do you have?
We currently have 47 contractors throughout the United States, and then we also have 5 full-time as well as a couple partners. And then on the restaurant side, which we just launched here in Ankeny, we have 27 different employees and then 3 full-time as well.
So when you get, part of what we're talking about is talent. And so, again, one of the other starker realities of the U.S. as a whole is that entrepreneurship and startups have been declining. And they have not been increasing. And there are a lot of people trying to figure out why that is. I'm going to discuss that with Steve Case. And the idea of kind of turning that around. Some think it's, a hostile environment about immigration. Some think it's capital and money issues. But, just opening it up when you kind of look at this, because I know that we're living in kind of an oasis where so much sounds like it's going well. But if you could tweak things and you had power to tweak some things to improve the environment so that there was not competitors in hot sauce, but maybe another company across the way that you thought was an important entrepreneurial contribution. What do you think matters to them? What are the sensitive points for an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. The sensitive points for an entrepreneur is basically meeting challenges and getting through those challenges. I think the biggest hurdle is just to not be afraid. The biggest thing is to just keep getting after it, and no matter where you come from, what your background is. I mean, after all, I'm Filipino and half Pakistani, and I'm still going after it with our hot sauce. And the best thing is to give back to the community. So the advice I would give to anybody rising to meet those challenges is just be fearless. Absolutely fearless.
Christina, have you thought about what these sensitive, touch points are that matter or not for the businesses you work with?
So what I think, just to add on to that, is that, a lot of reason it declines or that we see businesses for a short time that go away, it's not always necessarily that they failed. It was just fitting a niche in their life at that point. But a lot of people say, hey, I've got this idea for a business, and the family says, that's great. They don't get them onto other resources. They don't help them push that dream because the families like stability. They're terrified as well. And so I think that if we could just even get them to a resource to be able to flush out that idea, we might actually see if it could take off and be something in the community.
Dave?
I agree with that. I think there's also a challenge in finding our biggest issue in entrepreneurship and innovation really is not venture capital. It's people who have experience in knowing what to do with it and putting it to work, and finding people like you, frankly, who know how to build a business and who have the courage to do that. And I think in economies like perhaps the one here, certainly like ours, in which the history has been more large companies, it takes a certain leap of faith and courage to decide you're going to go it and start a business like the two of you have. And there need to be some other people around you who have done it too and can really tell you how to make it happen, how to make it work. That's our biggest challenge, is being able to find those folks and then continue to work with them to keep them making things happen. Our experience, at least, and I'll bet this is true here too, is that once people find success as entrepreneurs, they love it and they keep doing it and they don't tend to move. They even if they're very successful and sell a business, they'll come back and start a new one because they really want to do it again.
Laurie, when you deal with your high schoolers and grade schoolers and you're looking into their brilliant excellence at gaming, what do you see in the future that we may be missing? I mean, I ask this in a serious way, and let me just over-talk this for a moment. There's a guy named Jim McKelvey. Jim created something called Launch Code and was the co-founder of a company called Square. You may know Square. That's how you can charge your credit cards. Jim was from St. Louis, Missouri, as was Jack Dorsey, and so they were did this, and they did something truly impressive to me, which is to go out and create an organization that would train people or retrain people in coding. And oftentimes it was people who had been in jail, it was people who had health issues that kind of put them on the no-go list with some companies that were hiring. It had some speed bump in their lives, and Jim turned them into unbelievably world-class coders, and then found that the problem was not the skills of people, it was risk-averse human resources departments, and then began using the kind of celebrity that he had to sort of call out these HR departments and embarrass them. Called up Cisco, called up places, and began putting himself on the line and saying, you're not giving people a second chance. So I just want to say, both on the high school side, and kind of the wired kid that's coming up the way, but also people that have just things that go wrong and happen, whether or not we need to do more, maybe in this area, but just generally when it comes to kind of bringing talent into jobs at the level that David was just talking about. What do you think can be done? Because you run an institution. Do you think your institution can handle kind of the second chance economy, if you will?
Yes, we can, and we need more of us. To be honest with you, there's just not enough. We serve 3,500 kids statewide, and there are 60% of the kids in the schools today that need us. So there's that. But the kids that we work with, the kids that come from some broken lives and stuff, it wouldn't matter if it's high tech or if it's in engineering, manufacturing, anything STEM. They could get hooked to it if they had somebody believe in them. They can't even imagine what it would be like to step into these worlds, this conversation that we're having about Indiana. All they know is that they have a desire and passion, but the fear that they carry with them of everything that is from their life brings that forward. And they don't know. There's so many people that don't look like them, and they're bumping up against them, and they don't even know how to say hi. So the worlds of nonprofits where we're able to bring those folks together, and the people that are successful can talk about their brokenness too with our kids and help mentor them along. It just really makes a difference. And our kids can imagine themselves working in a company that before they thought, you guys are very uptight and you're very white, but I kind of like you, so maybe we can get together. And they can create, I think we're a hot sauce company, to be honest with you, bringing those folks together and being able to do that. But I think that's what we need to really invest more in, is the folks that are being able to be released from companies to come out and work with our young people. Those companies that do that, they get a more engaged employee. We've had employees come to us and say, I was going to quit my job, but because we get a volunteer for this, I love my company. Those are things that I didn't used to hear 10, 15 years ago. And companies saying, you know what, we need more release time, because what those individuals are doing while they're out there, not only helping a kid see their future, but they're recruiting to our company. And they're helping our diversity IQ. And the kids are saying, wow, we could get a job at $30,000 benefits. I didn't even know what benefits were. And now I see these, they start with the car. What do they drive?
They start out so, so innocent.
Right.
So
Yeah,
what,
so
I didn't
innocent.
even know what benefits are.
Can I personally weigh in
Yeah,
on
Christina,
that?
please.
So at Crème, personally, we have teamed with Beacon of Life, which is a women's, usually people coming out of the prison system, and we actually offer jobs. So the person at Beacon of Life works up to the point of where they get offered a job at Crème, and what we know is that we will not keep them, but they just need to get a good, steady job history going, and then we can actually refer them on for a better job. So we actually do implement that practice at Crème.
Taufeek, are you like one of the HR departments that's real nasty to people?
Oh yeah, every day. Every day.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I fulfill many different roles in the company. One day I might be doing HR, the next day I'm doing dishes at my restaurant. You know, it's just, there are so many things that go into a business that you have to be willing to do, and it's fun. It's the reward of it, learning how to build that business. And once you learn how to do that, you can bring somebody else into the community, somebody else that you can hire to fulfill that role for you.
Dave, before I go to the audience and we take a few questions, I just want, what if you were to, again, have one thing that you could change in the environment on this front, because I was very taken with the power of what you said and what you do. What do you most don't have that you most need to create that more inclusive economic world that you want? Short form.
It's a complex question, and we need to look at how we can intervene with the tools we have. I think we need to be working more with our employers to really identify on the inclusiveness issue those kinds of best opportunities, best skills, best jobs that make the most sense, which all jobs and skills right now are in hot demand. So there are some opportunities really to tailor what we're doing to be more targeted at that. I think we cannot count on low unemployment and a healthy economy to grow our way out of these issues. This is going to require intentionality of government policymakers. It's going to require intentionality of business leaders. It's going to require intentionality of philanthropy to intervene and make sure that we are including more people in this economy.
Well, this was a great panel for me. We're not going to end it yet, but I just really appreciate hearing about the Lolas and the China tariff issues. So many other things too. But let me open up the floor, questions and comments. Tons of you. Yes, right over here. And then we'll go right up here in front. Yes.
Hello, my name is Tammy Amsbaugh, and I work for the Center for Disabilities and Development out of the University of Iowa. And all of you have talked about some creative recruiting and hiring and inclusion issues, and I'd like to hear if any of you, or if you would like to hear about opportunities for inclusion of individuals with both physical and intellectual disabilities in your workforces. It's about 12% of Iowans and about 10% of working age Iowans have a disability.
Let's go around the end. First of all, thank you for what you do, because I think it's super important. And again, back to Jim McKelvey and Launch Code, if you want to, because it's St. Louis, but I think they're trying to go nationally. This is a huge issue for him. So just want to say you've got a partner in McKelvey. Quick thoughts? Yes.
I can weigh into that personally. So I have a brother that is high-functioning autistic, and so it's been a passion of mine. So Candeo actually in Ankeny and the Easter Seals, we work with them both. Just as we have with Beacon of Life, to provide jobs and opportunities for training, and it's been an amazing experience. So over the last 6 years, depending on what we need, we can reach out to the organization and hopefully help create jobs.
I think one of the things I'd weigh on is sometimes it's our systems that trap young people. I think about the young people with disabilities in the place where they're at, and sometimes, you know, the systems say move from system A to system B, and when there can be this opportunity to break that and help these kids we have a program that we're running in Boone right now that has 100% of the kids have IEPs and 504s. And everybody thought, well, then, you know, you're going to get this special ed support, and then you're going to move to the next level of support. Well, at the end, when they're getting ready to graduate, they didn't need the support at the next level. And people were like, oh, no. And we're like, yay. And the kids were like, yay, too, right?
Right.
And that's what we want to be able to do. And I think it takes that risk-taking that you mentioned to be able to do some of that stuff.
Any other?
Just if it's that large a percent of the economy, which makes a lot of sense to me, we obviously cannot afford not to have those folks included in it. And so back to what I was mentioning a moment ago about inclusive strategies, intentional strategies, specific hiring patterns, and employers who are really attuned to the particular issues that you're talking about and really design programs to do it. That can actually happen, and it really can happen at the leadership level in companies.
Absolutely. And I agree with all three of them. Absolutely.
I like agreeing on this particular case, but stop it after that. No. Yes, go ahead.
So for me, it's not really a question, but just to support your point in terms of being tech, and you were talking about youth and coding, right? I run a program, it's called Pursuit of Innovation, PI 515. We work mainly with Iowa underserved youth, getting them ready for tech skills. Terrific. And what we have started this year is something called Building the Tech Pipeline. We bring in companies into the classrooms. We impact over 100 students, and we're very unapologetic. When we say this, we're grooming a talent that stays in Iowa and calling out businesses, because every business talks about how they lack talent. When I'm in schools every single day, when I leave here, I have 2 classes, I meet kids who are very talented. The mistake businesses are making, and we're trying to change it, is this. It's not that the talent lacks, right. It's that they have not been groomed for the workforce that you need. So I was just adding on to how do we groom talent.
A powerful comment, thank you.
Good.
Yes, Dave?
And the reason that is really important what you're doing, you are showing those children that those opportunities are about them.
Yes.
They're about their future, they're not about somebody else, they're for them.
Any other questions, comments? Right, yep. We actually can't see any of you. We're really blind.
We're blind up here.
Yes, hi.
Hi, I'm sorry, second question I get to ask.
Oh,
but, Deborah
I thought you were an
Sallow,
entirely
Strategic
different
Relocation.
other
I know,
person.
I totally changed my look. The concern I have, we keep talking about low unemployment numbers in the Midwest and in Iowa in particular. Right. What we're not talking about is that low unemployment is also not taking into account the fact that we have really low minimum wage. So we have a lot of working poor. Right. People who cannot live a life, even though they're working full-time, and sometimes they're working 2 full-time jobs. How is the panel, and Dave, I think maybe you in particular might be able to address this, going to affect that change? Because we have a mandatory minimum wage by the state.
So our time is up, and we're going to go to this. I just want to say, because I'm going to steal a little bit of time to add to your excellent question. Again, this is a totally balanced question, but I was reading the Bob Woodward book. And there is a segment in the book where Gary Cohn, the former National Economic Advisor, is talking to President Trump about economics and looking at the future of robotics, automation, AI. And he says, you know, we really don't need to worry about the conditions of workers rising or wages, because we have other things that are going to impact us that are very good, so don't mess those up. So you know, part of the question which I can add on is you've got a low minimum wage, and you have other giant macro forces about to hit the economy that make it hard to fix. And so just quick responses, 20 seconds each. Dave?
Those macro forces will make the automation and the AI parts even more pressing, because there's going to be a need to do that. Again, it's going to require intentionality. It's going to require different policies for recruiting businesses, different policies for educating. Community colleges are going to need to focus on those jobs that actually will pay a living wage. You need to know what it is for your community. You can do that, though.
Christina?
I would agree. I mean, it has to take intention, and being in the restaurant industry, I don't know anybody that's paying minimum wage, because you can't get talent for that. And if they are paying, you know, less than, honestly, $15 an hour, it's literally a short part-time person. It's not somebody that's trying to live off of that wage. But it also will take just the community coming around and saying, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for a product as well, because restaurants, literally, their profit margin is only 4%.
Fascinating. Laurie?
In our work, we have to jump those jobs. Our kids can't live there. They have to go to those jobs that are paying higher wages. And if our employers can be able to help see their way through some of the red tape and eliminate some of that, and some of our education systems can get out of the way, then we can make some of that happen.
Taufeek, do you support raising the minimum wage?
Well, to piggy off what Christina said, I do feel that we do need to pay our employees a little bit more. We do that, seen it in the restaurant industry. If you pay anybody less than $15 per hour, you're really not going to get a good quality employee. They're going to go down the street to the next employer.
Ladies and gentlemen, Taufeek Shah, Laurie Phelan, Christina Moffatt, David Johnson. What a great conversation. Thank you, guys. Thank you very, very much.